Alrighty guys, welcome back here to WCA America 2015. I am Solid Jake, joined by the Kubi.
That's right. We just saw a crazy series between Cloud9 Vortex and 2Art Gaming. But up next is Cloud9 Maelstrom versus Stellar Lotus. I want you guys to get on social media, get on Twitter, use the hashtag WCA2015. Let us know, tweet at us, the Kubi and Solid Jake GG. We want to know who wins, and follow us, of course, at WCA_America. Let us know who's going to win this series. We want to know what you guys thought of that warriorless composition in the previous game. It's kind of crazy because between these two teams, upcoming we saw some triple warrior compositions, but then the flip side of completely not running a warrior at all.
It's so bizarre. Like, we have never seen that, but that's what this is all about. The stakes have never been higher, so the teams have been saving these secret strategies for that. But
That's right.
Kubi, we've got our next draft ready to roll between Cloud9 Maelstrom and Stellar Lotus, and we'll see what they have up their sleeves.
Boom. Stellar Lotus starting it off with a Sylvanas ban. I want to say that the two games that these guys played in the ESL NA Major League just last week, me and you casted that, we saw the Sylvanas banned from Stellar Lotus both games. They don't want to deal with it.
I mean, Sylvanas has not only a strong amount of push potential, a strong amount of damage, but the Wailing Arrow can just flat out win fights. And AoE silence that is ranged, oh, it's terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. And how many times do we see so many of the team fights turn around completely because a 3 or 4 man Wailing Arrow was hit? That's 2.5 seconds of silence. You can't use any of your abilities. You're just left with moving and using your basic attacks. So many heroes are very dependent on that for escape, etc., and it really can turn the fight. Stellar Lotus says, we're building our compositions around, intricate combinations of abilities. We want to make sure we can use them at all times. Get Sylvanas out of here.
All right, so we actually see Stellar Lotus going with Lost Vikings for that first pick, but we have to consider this is Tomb of the Spider Queen. This is a map where it's all about aggression, and it's rather quite small, so they fit a very different role. It's not so much about being across the map soaking, but actually just having, they're quite hard to eliminate, and they do have a strong amount of damage potential, but not only that, they can body block quite well, and we can see cool compositions evolve from that.
Yep. That has to be the idea that they're going for, Stellar Lotus, of course. And having that kind of control, there's a lot of narrow corridors in Tomb of the Spider Queen. It is, as you mentioned, it is a smaller map, and there are a lot of places, especially between the lanes, you can get stuck. And I'm sure the Vikings, if they're positioned properly, can absolutely lock out a set of heroes from moving down that corridor. Could be a big deal, especially if you try to eliminate them. Boom, pop the boat. That's a lot of damage that's now in your face you have to deal with, and they have a ton of escape tools to use to get out after the boat's duration is done.
Wow, this is a really early pickup on Diablo, and they follow up with Vala, but let's just talk about the other side very quickly. Sticking with Jaina and Uther, two blonde heroes, quite beautiful, but no, they're actually just quite standard picks, not showing any hands yet, just very standard stuff, picking up a damage and a healer. They can now likely pick up something like one of those half supports and another damage dealer.
Yeah, and we saw Cloud9 Maelstrom, they just ran a very aggressive set against Stellar Lotus in that ESL Major League. They ran Illidan a couple of the games, and it was just, they were in their face constantly. It didn't matter how much control Stellar Lotus had through the use of that triple warrior. They were just in there and making their composition work. If they've got Divine Shield and Jaina, they can absolutely get that damage output. We'll have to see if that's the type of style that they're looking to continue playing.
Yeah, I'm actually quite intrigued to see what they can do, because if they do in fact go for Kerrigan, like on a map like this, once you start that combo, you follow that up with the already existing Hammer of Justice on Uther, and then just the slow and damage of Jaina, it's scary. And we talk about Vikings as being like kind of all over the place, but it's a good chance they're going to be clumped up relatively often, and if Kerrigan can land that combo, she can pull all three in at once, and they will fall oh so very quickly in that situation.
Not only that, but she's getting the extra shielding for all of those targets hit. Could be very scary to deal with that. All right, so the other talking point that I want to bring up is that Cloud9 Maelstrom, when they feel they have a huge advantage over the other team, and there's no dancing around this, Cloud9 Maelstrom is the #1 ranked team in NA. Stellar Lotus, absolutely the underdogs here. Cloud9 Maelstrom has, in the past, shown a propensity for running crazy compositions, stuff that's completely out of the meta. But this is the biggest tournament we have seen to date for the competitive hero scene. I mean, maybe this is what they need.
Right.
to you know, say we're going to run standard things and we're going to see the true Cloud9 Maelstrom power.
This composition, though, looking at it, it still makes perfect sense to go for Kerrigan. Now, I like these pickups. Tassadar, that middle-of-the-road hero, he not only provides the damage, the healing, but he has the Oracle, the vision, just to see over those walls. And when he can see over those walls, Muradin can dwarf toss himself on over into an aggressive situation. And we've seen King Caffeine's Muradin in the past. It is something to just... Yeah, oh, beast-like. It's a good word. It's a good word, Kubi.
The other thing that's kind of fun, it looks like they're going for a matching. Look at this. It's like red team, yellow team. I like this. Keep it going, guys. Oh, come on.
Well, her face is purple. It's close to red. At least they match, right?
Okay,
so we have Tyrande and Brightwing. Now, I like this a lot because this could be them saying, look, Kerrigan is a big possibility. Polymorph, Lunar Flare Hunter's Mark, there's a lot of responses to a potential Kerrigan pick.
Absolutely. Well, going by that theme, the final pick has to be Nova, right? I have to round out the position.
To make it the full-on yellow team, Tyrael kind of works.
Yeah, Tyrael could work. Then you start getting away. He's got the hooded thing. All right, there it is.
There
Kerrigan.
she is.
Yeah,
there
you mentioned that. That does have quite the utility, and she has the backup. Muradin with the CCs to keep him alive. The burst healing with the Tassadar shield. Uther, of course, a lot of his kit. And then Divine Shield. If that ends up being the combination that is run, then we can expect to see Kerrigan absolutely just diving in to the middle of the enemy composition, getting that Divine Shield, racking up a huge amount of that trait ability shield to keep her alive, and she's going to get so much work done in those team fights. So just keep an eye on Kerrigan and her positioning, especially in relation to Uther during those fights.
I mean, it's going to be really cool to see this game unfold. The blonde team with Kerrigan, and then the red team with Brightwing and Tyrande duking it out. There is so much on the line, and guys, once again, get on social media, use that hashtag WCA2015. The first game of this Best of 3 series is, in fact, going to be Tomb of the Spider Queen.
That's right. So these two guys duked it out just recently in this past week. What kind of crazy strategies has Stellar Lotus racked up their sleeves? What have they been practicing ahead of time? We actually were able to talk to Iacona, the healer, on their team in our podcast over the past week. And he said that they were able to play Cloud9 Maelstrom quite a few times, and they learned a lot. They said, you know, we're able to scrim against them, even queue up against them in Hero League, and they said that they were paying close attention to how they were playing and really just wanted to try to craft a strategy around that, to try to find that loose pin and just take Maelstrom apart.
I mean, having that data, having that information about their strats is really cool and really nice, but we'll see what they can do. But Kubi, we'll talk about that more. Let us introduce the team with Stellar Lotus having Wargreymon on Vala, Iacona going to be playing Brightwing, Pickles will be playing as Diablo, ToeJam and Earl on Tyrande, and rounding up the team is Nightmare on the Lost Vikings.
Really quickly over on the right side, of course, this is Cloud9 Maelstrom, King Caffeine. Oh my goodness, with the quick arrogant pull onto Diablo, of all heroes. Highest HP pool in the game is able to be eliminated almost immediately. Just a slight oversight in the positioning. He actually had vision of that and probably was just feeling quite confident, honestly, because you're Diablo. You shouldn't die that quickly, but he did. That just goes to show the coordination that Cloud9 Maelstrom has and how nicely they've crafted their early game to it.
I mean, that just goes to show that Cloud9 Maelstrom needs no introduction because they won't even let us do
they won't.
So they're just going to continue this aggression. We see them rotating together very, very aggressively. Now, Tomb of the Spider Queens, we mentioned this, it's a very small map. The distance between the lanes is negligible. It's very small, and you can just rotate around for these aggressive pickups, and that's why Kerrigan is so powerful here.
Absolutely, and once again, we see the scouting drone picked up by Brightwing very early. Just want to make sure that they have that map control. Okay, here's another thing. Vala, once again, going for the Hungering Arrow style build. We actually saw this, I think it was Wargreymon who was also playing Vala in the two previous series. Both games, they were able to pick up Vala, and they're running this Hungering Arrow style build, which is, you know, it's going to be a lot of single target damage. So keep an eye on that to see how that differs from the multi-shot that we're used to seeing.
Definitely a little bit different, but I like the idea of just mixing things up and providing slightly, like you said, a little bit more single-target, blow-up kind of style, especially when you consider that you have the Tyrande. When you get that Hunter's Mark on the target, the Lunar Flare, it's going to lend it nicely, but the Lunar Flare will be nice and connect Nocturne and iDream, just kind of pushing back a little bit of potential aggression onto the side of Tuark.
For those of you guys who aren't familiar with this map, of course, this map features a slightly different backline to the minion waves. You guys can see those spiders, and they do drop those gems. The gems are, of course, turned in at the 2 points between top and mid, and the second one being between mid and bottom. If you're able to turn in 50 gems, as you guys can see in the lower right-hand corner, you get a set of web weavers that will push down your lane, providing your team a huge amount of opportunity to push, but Biceps, you just being able to keep himself alive just in time, using that shield, dimensional shift. But that, of course, you know, the Tyrande Diablo combo that they were able to pick up, you can do a huge amount of crowd control and rotating like we just saw there.
But that's how powerful, how hard it is to kill a Tassadar. The combo was executed absolutely perfectly, had the Hunter's Mark, had everything, but he still got out of that situation. Very nicely done, and we can see the gems are being collected. 35 sitting here on the side of Cloud9, 28. Slight difference in terms of the efficiency in terms of gem collection in favor of Cloud9 right now.
A couple of differences in the builds that we saw to the previous series. Maelstrom, of course, they're running the Muradin, but this time they're going for that piercing bolt style Storm Bolt, where they really just want to make sure they have extra control. They're likely to get that pierce at level 7, and they can do the extra amount of damage to structures as well. They realize that there's nothing on the enemy team that's pressing that they need to reduce the attack speed of. So I like this. This just goes to show you the flexibility that Heroes of the Storm has. You can pick up these talents on the fly, tweak your composition to really, for what makes sense, for what's in front of you.
And that's exactly what both teams will be doing throughout the game, but right now both teams are just constantly rotating around, trying to control those turn-ins. We can see they're just on the edge. King Caffeine jumping in there, thinking there might be something there. Brightwing uses the Polymorph to protect that scouting drone, and is successful in that quest as King Caffeine has to back out.
Yeah, it's funny how that play started out just to protect the scouting drone, but the rotation was there, and had they been able to get a little bit more poke damage on Muradin, that could have spelled a crazy, scary situation. And there is the 3-person pull onto the Vikings, like I said, but look at iDream, he's got that HP, he is extra shielding, makes him even more safe, and 2 of them are picked up. The poison is just enough, the Envenom, and that's, you know, that's even less presence, of course, that the Vikings have, and they have to be even more careful. Of course, they're respawn timers are a bit lower than most of the other heroes, but still, they're keeping Stellar Lotus on the back foot.
They're keeping them on the back foot, and they only need 5 more gems to turn in. iDream has exactly that, but not even needed as we have the turn-in here at the top coffer. Nicely done by Cloud9. This will net them a lot of aggression with the Web Reavers. This is basically minions that will march down all 3 lanes and provide a fair amount of siege damage and aggression, and they're going to even start these Giants before they disappear when the Web Weavers spawn, but here come those Web Weavers.
Yeah, and the Giants you mentioned, of course, Stellar Lotus, they have vision of this. You can still see that the mercenary camp is available to be captured, but they're just scared of the potential CCs that Cloud9 Maelstrom can throw down at any given moment, and they have to respect that. They did absolutely that. So now, an even more scary push being thrown in the bottom lane. Of course, they're continuing to get the soak in the other lanes as well.
Yeah.
Hold that thought, actually.
But you'll notice that we actually at Stellar Lotus pretty much put all their focus on that middle Web Weaver just to eliminate it, and that's why we saw so much aggression, just to take out these turrets. They just wanted to make sure they got the experience from that, but when they do rotate down, Cloud9 is happy to rotate up and just take out even more turrets, pushing their experience lead further forward.
Look at this. It's systematic that they're able to rotate from the bottom lane, sweeping all the way up to the top lane, taking out every single turret in the meantime, netting you 400 experience for each of those towers that are taken down, and a huge experience advantage. You guys can see that. Almost a level lead.
That's a big deal this early in the game, especially when you consider that quest to level 10. You want to get those heroics. Wargreymon will get pulled in. The stun comes up from Uther. The Lunar Flare trying to peel, but will not be enough. Vala falls is very early. Flipping King Caffeine back behind him. Pickles is the next target, but a nice cleanse coming out from Brightwing. That level 7 talent paying off, but does it matter? The aggression from Cloud9 continues forward.
Once again, Diablo picked up in a crazy situation that you think he wouldn't die. I saw the position that Vala was in, and Kerrigan diving in. She had nowhere to vault to either side. Usually the counterplay to Kerrigan to dodging the combo is to walk to one side or the other to try to juke Kerrigan and make that combo miss. She had nowhere to run to. We talked about the scariness of the narrow corridors that this map can offer, and I saw that. She jumped on and I was like, she's dead. There's no way that she can get out, and we saw just that. Within a flash, she was taken out, and then chase onto Diablo. A huge lead for Cloud9 Maelstrom, and they are quickly approaching level 10.
Yeah, they really are, and if we just take a look at the count on the gems in the bottom, 32 have been turned in on the side of Stellar Lotus. Right now, Olaf is sitting on 25 coins, and that's why they constantly keep putting a threat. They keep putting heroes here in the bushes looking for him. And if they can eliminate him, he will drop those gems and potentially lose them for the team.
Yeah, and that can be a huge deal as Stellar Lotus has 55 total gems stocked up. They can't lose those in a team fight, but this allows Maelstrom to get aggressive for even another reason. They have their heroics, and because of the amount of gems, they have to play super passive. So, speaking of those heroics, we do have the Divine Shield plus Maelstrom combo for Kerrigan. Archon to round that out, along with the Water Elemental and the Avatar on Muradin for the control.
This is just so hard for Stellar Lotus. So like you mentioned, they need those heroics. They're just trying to soak up the level 10. They're playing very passively because they know the flip of a switch, they can just jump in with that heroic advantage to try to pick up a kill. But only one more gem is needed. King Caffeine has 3. He will get those turned in, and that is a nether spawn of the Web Weavers.
This time, though, all of the walls are down. Each of the Web Weavers that push down each lane are going to be directly assaulting the ports, and if the rotational defense isn't on point from Stellar Lotus, if they lose a hero or 2 there, it's going to spell huge amounts of trouble. Yes, the experience disadvantage isn't super huge, and actually Iacona having to use that Blink Heal. We'll talk about those in a second.
And he burned Cleanse there, so
yeah,
that's an even big deal. Blink Heal, you have 2 stacks, it regenerates rather quickly. Cleanse, a slightly longer cooldown. So having that off the cooldown with Kerrigan and Muradin pushing down your lane, that's quite scary.
Absolutely, but the rotation, 4 members of Cloud9 Maelstrom are looking to back up. King Caffeine is the target. Looks as though he will be able to back out with that Dwarf Toss.
And they're going to continue moving forward because they do have that Web Weaver. There's no ammo left on the fort. It will inevitably fall, and the bottom fort will likely fall too from that Web Weaver. Right now, Cloud9 has everything going their way. They're going to continue forward and push down the third and final fort on the side of Stellar Lotus.
Just as we saw with the previous Web Weaver push, but hold on, King Caffeine, once again, the target they're trying to isolate. I think that might actually be a big deal. Hold on, iDream.
Beautiful positioning on that Starfall and Lightning Breath, but is it enough? iDream does not care in the front line because he had that Divine Shield. King Caffeine gets a clutch heal at the last possible second, allowing him to live. Kerrigan diving forward. 2 Envenoms go down, but the Blink Heal almost enough. Gonna be enough for ToeJam and Earl to live, tapping the well, but they need to back up and recuperate.
That is a 2-for-0 hero advantage in that fight for Cloud9 Maelstrom. It was just Kerrigan diving in, getting a ton done, which of course was able to regenerate all those shields and just makes her so difficult to kill. But the point that I was trying to talk about before that fight even started is that it seems as though, yeah, Stellar Lotus has a lot of potential to throw big damage down in a very CC heavy way. Diablo can Shadow Charge in, overpower, we see the Lunar Flare going down in the Hunter's Mark. That is a huge amount of damage output no matter who is on the rest of the team. Problem is, they keep trying to isolate Muradin, who has a ton of escape. He can always pop Avatar to get his HP up, and very likely at level 16, we're going to see that Stone Form, which gives him 50% of his HP healed over the 8-second duration. So they're going to have to look for ways to adjust their positioning, rotate around perhaps, and really try to find ways to flank to get those backline targets that are really clutch.
Speaking of a flank, we have Kerrigan coming from the bottle, and they choose Pickles as their focus target, very quickly blowing him up. They just have so much lockdown and so much damage. It doesn't matter that Diablo has the largest health pool in the game. He blows up so very fast when you have that damage.
Absolutely. Level 13 just picked up for Cloud9. We see the Shrink Ray on Uther. Double sprint for Jaina and Kerrigan. Just allows them, if they're feeling the fight's going their way, Kerrigan with that Maelstrom can get even more aggressive, throwing that basically herself onto the back line to get more value and DPS output there. The Reverberation upgrade to do 300% damage to a single target really just fits the theme of blowing up that single person.
Look at this aggression. Iacona has 41 coins. They know he's tasting. They want to go for him, but the Blink Heal going to be enough to get out. ToeJam and Earl getting those shields, the healing, trying to be enough, and it looks like it will be successful, but that's going to be Kerrigan going down first. Finally, a fight that's looking decent for Stellar Lotus, but they end up losing Diablo, so it's a 1-for-1 at this point in time, but we do have Cloud9 on their back foot.
And Caffeine, is he going to be able to make it out? War Greymon and the Vikings were in chase, and it looks as though somehow they're able to pull, look at the amount of gems that are on the ground. They were able to clean that up, and geez, I can't believe how long they waited to use the Divine Shield. I thought Kerrigan was going to be absolutely a ripe target for that, and just, throw that in the Maelstrom. She was so far forward,
right.
It kind of seemed like, that was the positioning. They were premeditating, like, let's throw Kerrigan into a crazy spot, and maybe Uther wasn't able to get quite into position to throw it down, or just wanted to wait until that very last second and just sort of overestimated or underestimated the amount of damage that Stellar Lotus would be able to put out.
I mean, really impressive plays on both sides. K1 Pro with a ton of aggression, sitting on 41 gems, will succeed in turning them in. That just means they need 9 more. Actually, make that one. Biceps has got it, and that is the 3rd turn-in of Web Weavers. But 47 coins still sit. If they are able to turn those in, Stellar Lotus will be able to pick that up and try to catch up in that experience.
Yeah, right now they just need to stay super far back, hit that level 13. Okay, they just did this. They might be able to mount a defense for that like quarter HP before Cloud9 Maelstrom hits level 16. Yes, we see from the shadows that extra reach that will allow Pickles on Diablo to get into the back line to really isolate the target. iDream is going to be the target they're looking to blow up. We see the Lightning Breath being thrown down. Biceps actually having to pop that dimensional shift. They're going to be able to get out. Were they able to coordinate enough to pull this off?
Oh my goodness, that Primal Grasp was huge, forcing Iacona into the ice block, but it only lasts a few seconds. Blink heal afterwards to King Caffeine going forward, but no, not able to pick up the kill. There it is. Nicely done by Tassadar. It's currently a 1-to-1. Kerrigan and Brightwing half fallen, but Pickles, the Diablo, goes down. Nightmare, that's one of the Vikings' 24 coins. Look at all of the coins that have been dropped. Only 11 remain for Stellar Lotus, and Cloud9 has no signs of stopping this aggression.
Oh my goodness, this pickup could absolutely net them a keep. Probably already will. Look at the pressure on the map with the Web Weavers. They're going to be able to take down so much structural damage. They have the level 16. This whole game is absolutely all Cloud9 Maelstrom.
I mean, the keeps are actually getting low. Even the middle one's still quite healthy, but the bottom one has lost nearly half its health points. That top keep does, in fact, fall to Cloud9, and they can just rotate back. They don't have to continue with this aggression because it's an unnecessary risk.
So the play that Stellar Lotus needs to make is, right now, patience. They have to wait until they hit level 16 to try to get that Talenteer advantage. Or they need to look to set up some kind of crazy play. But in general, once they're able to get the team fights to more of an even footing, I really want to see the Vikings sort of have a sneakier position in the fights. Right now, they're able to isolate a target, but they weren't able to finish killing Kerrigan. And she was able to run back. Some of the damage was then dispersed onto Tassadar, but since you're almost killing a bunch of people, that allows the healers to get in, throw down, and just keep them alive, and then they turn the fight around immediately. They need to... Stellar Lotus absolutely has to eliminate a target quickly, and I think really getting the Vikings into the back line to put that threat of the boat there while Diablo then charges in, it's what they need to do. It's how they need to adjust their team fighting.
Well, we'll see if they are able to do that, but right now Cloud9 is just being sure to take as much map control as humanly possible. They picked up multiple mercenary camps, and they've been leaving one member of their team on post at each of the tournaments to just make sure they don't get those Web Weavers, because once they get those Web Weavers, they might start taking down structures. Structures gets them a lot of experience. Experience puts them back in the game, and Cloud9 is well aware of this, and they want to prevent it at all costs.
Absolutely, but look at the positioning that Cloud9 Maelstrom. They realize they can get aggressive with that talent lead. It's sort of a catch-22 for Stellar Lotus. They need to get in to turn the gems to turn things around, but if they try to push out across the map, they can't take a team fight right now, not for another half level at least. So they are making the right call, and they need to just do everything in their power to stave off the aggression that Cloud9 Maelstrom is putting forward.
But with these Giants, that keep is already very low. A few more boulders will do it, and Cloud9 just kind of has to sit in the back line defending it. Look at Muradin's position. He has no fear. The Dwarf Toss to get out if needed, and that keep will go down, netting Cloud9 catapults in the bottom lane for the rest of the game.
Yes, with the pressure they already have in the top lane, you can see Brightwing sort of on duty, trying to make sure that she's pushing back the catapults, because those will perpetually push forward to the core, and Stellar Lotus is going to have to keep a mindful eye on that pressure that will exist in those two lanes. 4 turn-ins going the way of Cloud9 Maelstrom. They don't quite have enough gems, but they're already at 65. This has been a string of turn-in after turn-in after turn-in for Cloud9 Maelstrom.
I mean, incredibly dominant over that objective. Not a single turn-in for Stellar Lotus, but they're looking for it. King Caffeine will be able to Dwarf Toss. The Hunter's Mark did go down on him, and Pickles seems to be their next target, but the combo wasn't quite there. Lightning Breath, oh my goodness, in the back line. They are just evaporating Biceps with that rotation on Tassadar, just laying out the damage with the help of K1 Pro. Only the Vikings remain, but 1, 2, 3, they will be eliminated, and Diablo had souls to respawn, but that will be the end of the game.
Absolutely. King Caffeine leading the march. He's sort of pushing him into position. He's saying, all right, come in. I think that this is going to be the end of it. And absolutely we have Cloud9 Maelstrom throwing all of the damage onto the core. So a fairly quick game, I suppose, but the whole time it seemed like Cloud9 Maelstrom was absolutely in control. And how do you stop that? I have to be critical of how Stellar Lotus was initiating those team fights. It just seemed like every time it was Muradin, and they just were never able to isolate a target and kill them. And really, it just came down to the Vikings. I really would have loved to have seen the Vikings sort of moving around the back line, trying to force bad positioning from the backline of Cloud9 Maelstrom, perhaps in the form of their damage dealers. Try to make a hasty decision out of that, then Diablo charges in to throw down that combo.
I really do have to hand it to Cloud9, though. They never overcommitted to a situation that they weren't fully confident in. They had so many rotations set up where they didn't actually commit because they said, hey, we don't have enough information to guarantee that we will get a successful kill. Let's wait it out, and then they would just back up every single time. Very clean, decisive play, and that's why they're at the top of the North American scene right now.
Absolutely, and like you were mentioning, we just saw a very clean play out of Cloud9 Maelstrom. Nothing that seemed overconfident. It just kind of goes to show you how much stock they're putting into this event because it is the biggest competitive Heroes of the Storm tournament we have seen to date.
I mean, 19 grand up for grabs. You got to pull out your best moves. We're going to see what the teams can do going into game number 2. We're going to throw to a quick commercial break, but we'll be back in just a few. Alrighty, guys, welcome back here to WCA America 2015. I am joined by the Kubi, and I'm Solid Jake.
That's right. We saw a crazy game number 1 on Tomb of the Spider Queen between Stellar Lotus and Cloud9 Maelstrom. There's just all Cloud9 Maelstrom. They had control the whole time, very steady progress. They continued to take the objective in the form of the Web Weavers and slowly push down. It seemed like all 3 lanes at the same time.
But Kubi, these teams are anxious to get in. The draft has actually just begun, and we can actually just switch straight into that. Now, like you mentioned, aggressive play, Kerrigan, a constant threat. They had the Muradin. They had so much. We saw that Stellar Lotus had the Diablo Tyrande combo. They landed it a few times, so they didn't really ever capitalize all too much. What do you think they can do different on Garden of Terror?
I was going to say maybe they should look to ban out Kerrigan, but again, it's a larger map. It is Garden of Terror. Cloud9 Maelstrom in the past have shown that their Vikings play on Garden of Terror is insane. I dream
Insane or terrifying?
both. I see what you did there. That was good. But absolutely, they're able to get the soak and just the positioning during all the team fights, the longboat raids. I think it's smart to ban out the Vikings, but they're probably still going to have to deal with the Kerrigan. It just seems like their positioning, especially in the form of some of their backline players, wasn't quite there. Stellar Lotus looking to pick up that Vala one more time. They seem to really, really enjoy this with the Hungering Arrow style build, with the reset at level 7, the lifesteal. Interesting.
It works out with them. They do a large amount of damage. People in the past have always said that it's more efficient to go multi-shot no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
But we have seen a fair amount of potential with the focus available with that Hungering Arrow build. And Tyranida's still on the table, so I'm curious to see if Cloud9 will try to deny that. But with Brightwing being picked up...
So, Brightwing, no surprise. Cloud9 Maelstrom has always prioritized, not necessarily always, but especially in the past few weeks, they have really put a heavy emphasis on picking up the Brightwing. And it not always has to do with, trying to lock out Kerrigan or lock out Illidan. They have the positioning. Usually it's Dunk Train that's on Brightwing. He gets really nice Emerald wins that just are so difficult to deal with. He just seems to find the right place to squeeze into, push the entire team back, and it just isolates members. And it acts as a form of really good CC, especially, on Garden of Terror. There will be places where you will be locked out of the fight for a long time.
But Stellar Lotus is well aware of this, and they're picking up Tassadar and Diablo. This is just a very normal meta, right? The 1.5 support. Tassadar has the damage, he's got the vision, he's got the support. Uther, Diablo, they could still scoop up Tyrande around at this composition, but I almost feel like they need something that's a little bit more damage, right? Tyrande is good, and she provides Hunter's Mark to help eliminate a target, but I would really like to see something different, like Falstad here.
So, if they pick up Tyrande, what that's going to say to me is that Stellar Lotus, they had a pep talk between games 1 and 2. They said, okay, let's take a look at why we lost. Was it the composition, or was it because of how we played and how we executed? And it's possible that they just sort of looked at the scenario and said, we need to pick the targets better. We need to make sure that we're lining up our CCs. It has nothing to do with the composition. So if we can draft ourselves the same thing, we feel comfortable with it, we've run in the past, and okay. There's that cheeky play that I was talking about. Just a little bit of a showing for Cloud9 Maelstrom. Right at the last second, we see the Sylvanas picked up, but Brightwing, Nubarak, and Murky.
Kubi, this is the third time in history that Cloud9 Maelstrom has been up one game and drafted a Nubarak and Murky. And you might be saying this is bad banner, this is crazy. No, this is actually an incredibly powerful composition where they time the web wrap of a Nubarak and the octograb of Murky to lock out 2 members of the team for an incredible amount of damage. But Kubi, you just made a very startled look.
I did, because the Nova was picked up as the final grab for Stellar Lotus. Now that, you were looking for more burst damage. You wanted to see that, and there it is in the form of Nova. So, but the thing is, there's a lot of very scary targets that could be picked up, especially through the use you were mentioning, the web wrap, the octograb from Murky. They can pull the team fight into a 3v5 very, very quickly, and it's going to be something that Stellar Lotus has to keep cognizant of during the team fights and how they want to position themselves, because it's probably something they're very much not used to dealing with.
All right, guys, well, the game is just about set up. Going to give the players the go-ahead and tell them they can go, go, go. Game number 2, Cloud9 Maelstrom is currently sitting up 1-0, but these drafts are actually crazy. We talked about the potential of the web wrap, the potential of the octograb to try to lock out 2 members of the team fight. But Kubi, do you really think they're going to be able to blow up those heroes fast enough with the composition they have with Diablo?
It's not really so much... Yeah, I think that the Nova play is going to have to very much, she's going to grab the Gathering Power very much at level 4, and she's going to have to make sure that she keeps her stacks up, and the positioning has to be on point, but more importantly, the rotation of the combos with the painting shot, the snipe, all of it has to be there and on point, and she's going to have to rely a lot on Diablo to provide the control for those team fights to make sure that she can get a clean shot on the target and then turn the fight into a 4v5.
All right, guys. Well, the game is actually loaded up and ready to roll. We're going to hop right on in and introduce the teams. And on the blue side, we do have Cloud9 Maelstrom with King Caffeine on Murky. A crowd favorite, K1 Pro will be playing as Jaina. Going to be Biceps playing Sylvanas. And in the top, it's iDream on Nubarak and Dunk Train on the infamous Brightwing.
That's right. And over on the right side for Stellar Lotus, this is a very critical game for them. If they lose this, they are out of the WCA America qualifiers. Iacona is going to be on Uther. In the middle lane, we have Tassadar, ToeJam and Earl. War Greymon is going to be on Nova. Nightmare is going to be playing Fala. And Pickles once again on Diablo.
This very aggressive posture here by Stellar Lotus. They're looking for a target to blow up, and they're going to find Murky. Now, the way Murky works, as you see, they killed him very quickly, but he puts an egg down in the bottom of the map in which he can respawn from. That egg can become a focus point for Nova, but notice his positioning. Nova's not going to sneak behind enemy lines with the stealth to try to eliminate an egg all that often because that's a very risky thing for her to do.
Absolutely, but still something they have to keep in mind. Of course, the best way to describe Murky's playstyle is just obnoxious. Coming back and back and back, and because he has that low HP pool, he does have that safety bubble. He can just get into the back line, body block, throw down that slime, which is a 20% slow, which we may even see traded even higher as the game goes on. We'll pay attention to that Murky build, but it's just something to keep in mind. Even though he has that low HP pool, he will get to the back line and be absolutely obnoxious.
But in the first 10 levels of the game, we'll typically see the Murky just kind of sitting in lane soaking. He's actually very good at just pushing the lane. He has 2 area of effect abilities, and with that, he'll utilize that to just push on forward. You see how quickly he eliminated those minions. Looking quite nice, but when he hits 10, he gets a bit more formidable in those team fights.
So, speaking of those team fights, at level 10, who do you think are going to be the targets for those lockdowns that you mentioned, the Web Wrap and the Octograph?
I think locking down the Uther and the Diablo is kind of crucial, but there's so much flexibility with that. That's eliminating two targets for a fair amount of time during a team fight. It doesn't matter all that much. It makes it a 3v5, and no matter how you do it, the numbers on the table, that's such a good spot for any team.
Yeah, I think that Stellar Lotus is going to be looking to putting a lot of stock into making sure that Fala, if she chooses to go for the Strafe, we might see a Strafe Divine Shield combo. So locking out Uther, they have the potential to save with that burst, you know, quote-unquote healing through the use of that Divine Shield. If you pull him out of the fight, I think that's going to be one of the targets we will likely see more often.
All right, well, this is in fact the first time we've played on Garden of Terror today, so let's just quickly talk about the objectives. There is a night phase where seeds and plant terrors will spawn in the form of minions, which if you destroy them, you can collect their seeds to summon a plant terror of your own. But a lot of aggression going back and forth. Both teams, they want to fight over the potential of taking the seeds from this boss.
Yes, and when you take that Garden Terror, of course, you are able to throw a hero inside of it, much like you would have seen on Dragonshire. And Pickles looking, gets really far forward, and the poke from Biceps and K1 Pro is going to be enough. Overstepped his bounds in, now ToeJam and Earl forced to use that Dimensional Shift, but the poison is going to be enough, and the shot last second in time. They are able to pick up 2 heroes with that little bit of overextension.
They even used the Haunting Wave of Sylvanas to make sure they had a little bit of additional damage. Very nicely done. That ability is typically used as a retreat, but it does do a small amount of damage. That's going to net 30 to 30 seeds right now for both teams. Very even split. They just traded out the Shamblers, the smaller minions that appear on the map. Both of the plant terrors that each hold 60 seeds are at full health.
Look at this. Pickles diving forward onto K1 Pro. The rotation, the phase shift from Dunk Train is going to be in time to keep him alive. And now there it is. King Caffeine on Murky, body blocking War Greymon. Is he going to be able to get out in time? Biceps with the rotation, not quite enough. A huge amount of damage thrown down onto Stellar Lotus, not quite able to pick up a kill.
That's the crazy thing about Murky. You can put yourself in the worst spot ever to body block the enemy team just because it means so little when he dies. Yes, you give the enemy team a small amount of experience, but it's nothing like dying at a normal hero.
Absolutely right. So one of the interesting level 4 talents I see picked up on Tassadar is the Acuity. That's the reduction in cooldown for Oracle. That's Tassadar's one of the real nice things that he has as a support is that he has the extra vision radius, and that just allows him to see that. He's got it on right now, so he can see what the rotation is from the enemy team. And this just allows him to cast it more and more. This is sort of a replacement for Scouting Drone. It just means, to me, at the very least, that they are respecting the fact that Cloud9 Maelstrom will be rotating heavily.
Now, Biceps and K1 Pro looking to potentially flank here, but they are going to back out. As we can see, Stellar Lotus is just forcing them away, but this actually takes Stellar Lotus out of that bottom lane entirely. And each and every minute where they're not in their lane, soaking experience will put them a little bit behind if the opposing team is. And Murky, we talked about his ability to lane. He is actually just sitting there in that bottom lane, pushing it forward, and now rotating up to start on this boss. Each team working on a boss.
Absolutely. So as we're talking about that, okay, so Cleanse was picked up just about every game that it was possible. We had Uther, okay, so Uther is picking it up here, but take note of Brightwing's build. We do see the Gust of Healing. Now look at the composition from the enemy team. Is there a potential heavy amount of stun that is available? Not really. Yes,
no,
they have
yeah.
Uther and they have Diablo, but it's not like one of those tried and true combos that we're seeing. That's what is so awesome about Heroes of the Storm, is that you see the situation, say we can just use a little bit more healing to try to counteract the burst damage that Nova has. That's why we see the Gust of Healing picked up.
And it will likely signal that Dunk Train is going to pick up that Emerald Wind. We talked about how powerful that ability is to just displace the enemy team. When you throw a Web Wrap, an Octograb, and Emerald Wind at the opponents,
yeah,
they just pretty much can't fight. You just take your hands off the keyboard and say GG.
It's true, because you have to look at the fact that they can take a snapshot of the positioning of at least two of the heroes on the enemy team with the Web Wrap and with the Octograb. So that means that all of a sudden, like, if you see the Brightwing diving into the back line, it's like, okay, she's going to be throwing down that Emerald Wind. We need to make sure that our positioning isn't bad. But if you get locked in immediately, and then as soon as those CCs are up, then the Emerald Wind goes down, you have to be on point with your positioning 100% of the time. Doesn't matter how close Dunk Train is.
And we do in fact see the Emerald Wind picked up. Level 10 has been hit. Web Wrap, Wailing Arrow, Emerald Wind, Water Elemental, and Octograb, all as we predicted. And that's going to give them so much power. A full level is needed before Stellar Lotus will have their heroic ability.
Yes, Stellar Lotus needs to continue soaking, and because of this minion wave pushing in and Sylvanas, they might be able to take this fort in the bottom lane before Stellar Lotus is able to take level 10. It doesn't look okay. They're actually going to back up. They sense the rotation. They see, yes, Pickles in the position. King Caffeine, that's another thing. He has the low HP pull, but again, he is somewhat expendable, right? So he can sort of act as a scout.
Yeah.
He can be almost like a moving ward. Keep an eye on the positioning that Stellar Lotus has.
And he has so much health regen. I mean, he is not afraid, again, to throw his life away and just provide information and almost force a situation. And look, he's still alive. He's going to hang out next to Brightwing. His passive healing alone is quite high, but the pulsing of Brightwing going to help out quite a bit.
Take Force Wall! Force Wall was picked!
Oh my goodness.
Tassadar with the Force Wall. We saw some of this play picked up in Heroes of the Dorm. Quite a bit of utility used there, but I think that the idea here is to try to lock out some of those enemy heroes, and if they can sort of separate it in the sense of how Emerald Wind is used. Oh, Dunk Train, is he out of position? The rest of the team is nowhere to be found. Is he going to be able to get out? He tries to cast the Emerald Wind, ends up dying really quick. This is a huge turn for Stellar Lotus.
Massive props to Pickles. He waited out the cleanse before he used the E. So many Diablo players would just, on reaction, hit the E after Shadow charging forward, doesn't use the overpower, holds it, cleanse expires, then he flips and eliminates Brightwing.
And that is a huge piece to how Cloud9 Maelstrom plans to execute their team fights. They're going to absolutely have to wait for Dunk Train to get back up before they go in. And there he is. He's actually teleporting onto King Caffeine. What's the position going to be? Dunk Train floating around from the backside. He's trying to get that nice Emerald Wind position. Pickles casting the Fire Breath. And there is the Emerald Wind. Web Wrap has been casted. Stellar Lotus is looking to get Iacona out of there, but the follow-up.
I mean, yeah, the Octograb is quite nice, but there is that dive forward. Water Elemental in the front line, buying a little bit of time, but not enough for Iacona to survive. He has now been reduced to a ghost, but he can still try to keep his allies alive. But no, not going to be quite enough. Very aggressive play by Sylvanas, picking up yet another kill. It is 5 to 1.75 in favor of Cloud9.
That was very much different to how we used to see a lot of their team fights go. More often than not, again, like we said, isolate the fight into a 3v5. This time, they ended up chaining a lot of the CCs together. The Web Wrap allowed King Caffeine to get into position to cast the Octograb, and the follow-up, they just were not able to keep Uther alive, even though he was able to cast the Divine Storm.
And Kubi, this is the second night phase spawning. They only needed 10 more seeds to net themselves a Plant Terror. They have picked up at least 70 right now. I mean, that's putting them well over having a single Plant Terror. They're going to have enough for 2 with this, but Diablo going to try to steal a few seats. Not too many being picked up. The damage coming onto Nightmare, but the strafe cut is full duration.
They're able to keep Dunk Train alive, and a lot of resources were used in that, especially the Strafe, a huge damage source for Stellar Lotus, and a lot of the heroes for Cloud9 Maelstrom were just able to get out of the way. So unfortunately, that's going to be a terror for Cloud9 Maelstrom. That's another terror. After this one expires, is going to be about a 30-second window where they can't capture another one, but that's going to be constant pushing for iDream here in the Garden Terror, and that's something that Stellar Lotus is going to be on the back foot dealing with.
Yeah, but Stellar Lotus did collect enough seeds to get in Terror of their own. So they got in there, they only needed 5, they got a little bit more than that to pick up a Terror of their own, and it is just now dinged. That means it's ready. The food's ready, boys. We're going to go get a plant, and we'll see who ends up popping into it in this game.
Look at this, 150 extra seeds for Cloud9 Maelstrom. So very likely this first set of terrors, I think that Stellar Lotus, again, they're on the back foot. They're probably going to look to negate Cloud9 Maelstrom's terror here.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, the rotation getting Nova, especially with the slow, the K1 Pro offers up with his kit. It's so difficult for Nova to get out. She's a very, she just lacks mobility as a hero. She has high burst damage, but until she hits level 20, even then it's not always grabbed. But Bolt of the Storm is really one of her only options to fake out and juke enemy heroes for her safety.
Yeah, well, the Terras did duel briefly in the top, but guess what? iDream, his Terra only has 20 seconds left. He's utilizing it to dish out some damage on these back walls. There's no way to heal up these forts, no Mule in this game, but ToeJam and Earl is happy to trade out with some damage because they need to catch up in those talents. This will allow them to hit level 13 and be on a little bit more even footing.
Look at this, how do you do it? At one point they had this split push between the two lanes, Sylvanas in the bottom, and the Garden Terror in the top lane. Very difficult for the teams to react to. Level 16 just picked up for Cloud9 Maelstrom. It's just double blood for blood. Just a lot of damage output and slime talents picked up for Murky, and they are rotating back. Cloud9 Maelstrom is just looking to deal with this Garden Terror very quickly. ToeJam and Earl gets, wow, with the Polymorph and the Emerald Wind. Oh, he's not going to end up dying!
Huge plays. The rotation was there just in time by the rest of the team to try to get him out of there, and they did succeed. Almost. Tassadar did end up falling, but man, we saw the Wailing Arrow. WarGreymon going to get hit by the Precision Strike. The heals coming up from Uther Ghost, not going to be enough. Flipping there from Diablo. Nightmare in the middle of the battle will be eliminated, and that Kubi is going to be a successful ace.
Yes, Diablo, of course, does have enough souls to get back up. No keeps are down at this time. There's going to be a huge amount of structural damage to that inner wall for Stellar Lotus. This sets Cloud9 Maelstrom up for a huge push later in the game. If another fight goes that way for Cloud9 Maelstrom, that will be the end of the game for sure.
Really, really beautiful play coming out of Cloud9 right now. They're just rotating around the map, picking up more control of these mercenary camps. They're in these bottom giants. This is an aggressive mercenary camp. They can now rotate back to just about every other camp on the map to do that. Kubi, let's take a quick look at the numbers here.
Yes, absolutely. Sylvanas has been really getting that damage output for Cloud9 Maelstrom. Of course, the heals for Brightwing well up there, in Vala. Like I said, a lot of the strategy was going to be about making sure that Vala gets a ton of use out of that strafe. It has been good so far, but the follow-up hasn't always been on point. And it's, you know, Nova's damage output is low. It's really just because she hasn't gotten the opportunity to do so. And she's a hero where it's, when your team's hot, she looks really strong. But when you're getting shut down, it looks awful.
Yeah, it's really, really tough to come back in those kind of situations that you mentioned because Nova, like you said, she thrives when you're ahead. But there is a nearly 4 level lead for Cloud9 Maelstrom. This is some very convincing play. They have mercenary camps pushing. I mean, you can see they have painted the map blue. Everything is in their favor, and they can march down whichever lane they please.
Absolutely. With the second Garden Terror, we talked about how this is going to continue to put Stellar Lotus on the back foot. We see the double spell shield picked up. They're looking to just try to mitigate some of that spell damage that is being thrown the way of Cloud9 Maelstrom. But this is a 4-level lead. We can't emphasize enough how important this is in the team fights. They absolutely have to keep their hands away from this fight, try to mitigate the damage and burn down this Garden Terror. But look what's going on in the background. Cloud9 Maelstrom is just continuing to back up and take seeds. They're playing the safe route, but they're shutting down Stellar Lotus from trying to make a comeback through the use of the map mechanic.
I mean, this is actually kind of crazy. They had every Merc camp. They pushed with the Plant Terror. They're now taking just about every single seed available on the map. They've had back-to-back terrors. 2 terrors. This is going to be a 3rd terror. They're sitting at 160, 70 seeds, and there's still more on the map. There is the potential of Cloud9 having 4 terrors in a row. That is something that I have never seen in my history of casting Heroes of the Storm.
That is absolutely insane. Consider, yes, it goes to show how much presence they've had on the map. Dunk Train, who actually gets isolated. I didn't think that would be possible considering the level lead, but this is the type of play they need to make. They need to isolate heroes, wipe them off the map, and then try to push this advantage. Murky is actually just pushing out to the core. I think that might be a bit of a cocky play, maybe. Who knows? iDream actually gets hit by the Precision Strike, and that is going to be a 2-hero advantage for Stellar Lotus. This is how you get back in the game. They have level 16. What is going to be their talent choices to try to drive back in?
They just flipped a switch. They went in onto Dunk Train. The force wall makes it so there's no escape path no matter what you do. You can try to sprint away. The wall is closed, my friend. And the kills, when you're behind this far, they mean so much. They help you get back in. Having level 16 talents is really the kind of life they needed breathed into them. And I mean, honestly, the game's not even, but there is a hope for Stellar Lotus once again.
For sure, absolutely. We see the Benediction that allows for even more control in these team fights. Blood for Vala just to keep her alive. That's the crippling shot. Even more damage output can be thrown down into a single target. That's 25% increased damage for the target that gets hit by the crippling shot. So you got to keep that in mind. Look, everything is just like a lot of damage output. Firestorm for Diablo. They really want to try to make use of the momentum they have and really start rolling these team fights.
And I love this pickup on Spell Shield for Vala. It's a very uncommon thing, but if Vala is that priority damage dealer for them to find and, you know, blow up in the early fights, it's going to be a lot harder to do with the Spell Shield talent. A beautiful force wall, but Shadow Charge actually knocked Murky through it looks like.
Yeah, I think it wasn't quite lined up with the corner of the wall, and he was able to sort of pass around it. Something to keep in mind with that positioning. Level 20 picked up for Cloud9 Maelstrom, and we see and a Shark 2.
And a Shark 2, that upgrade for the Octo Grab on Murky. Very cool. Going to make him hit a little bit harder, but we talked about the potential of that 4th terror. Cloud9 is on the case. They only need 15 more seeds, and they are going to succeed in doing that. 4 terrors in a row is in fact possible for them.
They realize they're not going to get a lot of push done with this, but again, all of this is coming down to manipulating the objective on the map.
Oh, the Wailing Arrow misses entirely. This is actually horrible for Cloud9. And look at the positioning on that Lightning Breath, buying time for Nightmare. The heals come out. K1 Pro in the backline is completely separated from the rest of his team, but Nightmare is the first one that ends up falling.
That is actually a big deal, leaving K1 Pro alive. He's going to be able to throw damage down to the retreating targets from Stellar Lotus. Pickles is going to be the next target. Likely has enough souls, excuse me. Yes, he does, so he will be back up in 5 seconds. But still, that's 2 members of Stellar Lotus that are down for at least 30 seconds.
I don't know how Cloud9 pulled that through. They looked like they had a great start on the side of Stellar Lotus, but Cloud9 has this terror, 28 seconds remaining on its health bar, and it is just whacking away on the core, opting to back up to help K1 Pro here. We do see another kill has been picked up onto Nova this time. Pickles, he did have that regen. Shadow Charge negating the Emerald Wind, but doesn't matter. The Cone Root is going to be enough to lock him down, and iDream is continuing to apply pressure to the core.
And that should be enough. Of course, got to remember that is Nubarak underneath that. They also have another Garden Terror that is available to be picked up after this. They're just getting kill after kill after kill. That is now Uther falling out of the fight. They have the web wrap on an additional hero. ToeJam and Earl looking to try to get in to mitigate, but the core is just about to fall 4-3-2%. It is done. G! Cloud9 Maelstrom taking the series 2-0.
Very, very impressive play by both teams today. I mean, all 4 teams, really just solid play. Vortex, they fell to 2ARC in the first series, 2-0, and in the second series, Maelstrom with a decisive 2-0 victory over the boys at Stellar Lotus.
Absolutely, Jake. So yeah, there was quite a few good games. Let's wrap up and talk about some of the groups that we're going to be seeing over the coming days. Of course, we just saw Group A, and that was between Cloud9 Vortex, 2ARC Gaming, Cloud9 Maelstrom, and Stellar Lotus. Of course, we have the winners there. Moving on to Wednesday's games, 2ARC Gaming and Cloud9 Maelstrom. For Tuesday, we're looking at Tempo Storm, Cognitive Gaming, Zevron, and Complexity.
And Kubi, what are the matchups for those games tomorrow? Do you know which teams will be starting out the day?
Absolutely. We're going to have Tempo Storm versus Cognitive Gaming starting right at 5 p.m. Pacific time, same place. And following that, we are going to have Zevron versus Complexity.
All 4 of those teams are so evenly paired. There's $19,000 up for grabs here, and the teams are busting out crazy strategies. We saw Tuark come flying forward with a warrior list composition back-to-back games. That's crazy. We don't see that kind of stuff,
I know.
and I can't wait to see what the other teams can do. I mean, Tempo Storm, they're known for innovating. They're known for busting out things that no one's ever seen. We saw the Asmodee style out of them a while ago. Maybe they found a new hero that is just going to mix things up to another level.
Yeah, we know that all of these teams have been hard at work in the lab, really trying to come up with that next best thing, and they've been saving their strategies. They really want to try to break it out because this is the biggest event we've had for competitive heroes. Like you said, $19,000 in prizing just for the qualifier event. That is absolutely huge, so you know that these teams are putting together their full gusto, really trying to get their hands on that prize pool.
And now it's time for you guys to get on your full gusto on social media. Use the hashtag WCA2015 and let us know who you think is going to take the games tomorrow. After all of tomorrow's games are decided, we will have 4 teams playing in the semifinals, which will happen the following day, this coming Wednesday.
Absolutely. And again, that same time, 5 p.m. Pacific time, same place. So, Jake, do we have anything else?
I think that's going to do it here tonight here at the WCA Americas 2015. We'll be back tomorrow, like you said, at 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll see you then.